2024 has been a great year for me, for gaming. The first and most important things is friends. Finally, we fully recovered from the pandemic. My group of gaming friends is now back to 8 or 10 friends per game night, which is what used to be until 2019. And then, of course, we closed down shop, and then it was a much smaller group for a couple of years, 3, 4 friends, which is fine, but it doesn't compare. No, it doesn't compare to the joy of a large group of friends playing multiple games or playing one large game. Just a lot of fun. 2024, however, has also been saddened for me by the loss of a dear friend, Jim Morrison. He was the last of my friends with whom we used to play war games. The other wargaming friends either moved out of town or they don't play the kind of game anymore. Or like my poor friend Jim, they're not on this earth anymore. But my top 10. So the friends that you play games with are super important, but the games are also pretty important, pretty good, because the hobby of playing games keeps evolving and giving us great stuff. So this is my completely personal, completely subjective top 10 of my favorite games of 2024. Position number 10, Lifeboats Plank of Carneades, a game that I picked up kind of by chance at Gen Con because it looked interesting with all these boats with meatballs on it. I had no idea it was the remake of an older game, and I guess this is really the kind of game that works as a celebration for the rebirth of my game night, because it does take a good number of people. It's all about diplomacy, there is no randomness, it's all about a bunch of people that are trying to survive a shipwreck. We're on these tiny boats, so we're trying to reach the island, and however, there are holes that open up and water comes in the boats all the time. And so it's all about the negotiation about where the new hole is going to show up, who is going to jump on each boat. Again, diplomacy, bit of backstabbing or a lot of that, bit of cutthroating, a lot of that maybe, but it's all friendly banter again, because when you have a group of people and you can have this kind of intense scheming and diplomacy, it's good. It means it's a solid group. This game really is one that is all about the people playing, but it's the game that allows that kind of fun interaction. So, Lifeboats, Plank of Carneades, cutthroat game, which is all about the diplomacy, and I enjoyed it, and is number 10 of my top 10. Number 9, as chance would have it, another game that I saw randomly at Gen Con, picked it up knowing nothing about it, and has been a big hit. Charcuterie. I love the theme. I think that's what very often I eat when I go out for a fancy dinner with my wife. I eat that as my main dish, not as an appetizer. I love the topic, which is why I got curious about, and I love the mechanics. The super simple tile-laying games in which you'll end up placing these tiles representing different kinds of food. You place them in order to create certain patterns that will score points, but at the same time, you will create a really nice composition. It's I cut, you choose mechanic, which I find extremely challenging and extremely rewarding and extremely fascinating. I'm not very good at it, but I like playing with that mechanic. And so you're going to have a lot of pretty smooth, pretty quick gameplay. And it's fun and challenging. The scoring conditions change every time, and you can tweak them if you're playing with new players. You want something more challenging, less challenging. Charcuterie looks great. It plays very easily. I played it with my family. I played it with the hardcore gamers. Everybody enjoyed it. Number 9 of my top 10. Number 8. I saw this one at Gen Con, but I didn't pick it up then. But the publisher was kind enough to send me a review copy later of Wild Gardens. I'm also fascinated by this game because there is a location in the game, which is my beloved town of beautiful Bloomington, Indiana. Wild Gardens is about collecting food and then collecting recipes, and you use that food with those recipes to make food, and then you attract friends. and they come over. It's kind of like a magnified version of Splendor in that sense, with more of a spatial element in the way that you go around the board and you collect the various ingredients and you loop around the world. It's kind of like a curved universe, and you go back multiple times. But you unlock different tasks, different abilities. And while it can be a little overwhelming at the beginning, then it flows very well once players are familiar with. I also want to mention that it has a solo version which plays quite differently from just the regular version against an AI, because here you have almost like a game book. The scenarios have little narratives that unlock as you perform certain actions. The general objective is not necessarily clear at the beginning. Say, perform this task within the amount of time. You do it, you read a paragraph that advances the story, and then you discover what you need to do next. It works very well, very smooth, and it almost makes, again, for almost two different games, so there is value for me in that. Wild Garden being number, I already lost the count. There are two there, so this must be number 7. That tells you I teach in college, but I don't teach math. This must be number 8. Number 8. Number 7. Was that a magical Gencon or what? Because in my top 10, there are 3 games that I just picked up again randomly there because they look good on the table. I guess I need to do maybe even more of that in the future. And again, it's the kind of game that is a celebration of having a lot of friends over for game night. Dungeon Cart, which of course is based on a famous video game that we all know. It is the board game version. It is a driving racing game with fantasy characters that are driving carts in variable races, so variable landscape, different challenges, unique powers for the characters, unique powers for the cars that they're driving. Each time you will change the speed, going higher, going slower, but that of course means that you're committed to cover a certain amount of space with only a certain amount of possible turns. A lot of interesting challenges, and precisely in the video game that this is clearly inspired by. A lot of fun, crazy banters, interactions with people throwing different things at each other using game effects. It's messy, it's chaotic, yet it still has an element of strategy as you try to puzzle out the best way. It has a lot of exciting moments as people come from behind and maybe you lose your lead, but you may get it back. It's fun, messy, ridiculous, and just extremely enjoyable. And this was number... I'm just checking if you're keeping count. Yes, that was the number. This must be number 6. Undaunted, 2200, Callisto. The Undaunted system is one that I enjoy very much. No surprise, no secret there. As I play fewer war games these days, a lot fewer, and also simpler games, this is the kind of war game that I want to play because it has the feel and flow of modern game design. In particular, here we have card-driven and deck-building action. Getting reinforcements means adding cards to your deck. Getting hit, it means to lose cards from your deck. So all the good things of Undaunted with mechas, hello, giant machines doing crazy stuff on the board. The box is heavy because it comes with multiple boards. So it's beautiful. It's thematic. It's dark. It's a future with this again really gloomy feel of like tough, hard action. In terms of mechanics, you have elevation. Again, you have different vehicles, different actions. You have a lot of scenarios, so there's a lot to like in this game. If you like science fiction and wargaming, and if you liked any games in the Undaunted system, I think this could be a good choice. I think it's a very worthy addition to the general family of Undaunted. Undaunted 2200, number 6 in my personal top 10. The stack days become a little wobbly because Lifeboats is at the bottom and then all the other games become bigger. 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 5. Now that's now it gets real. Now it gets hot. Stamp Swap, a game that I played very recently and reviewed very recently. I played it with the family. I played it with friends. I played it when traveling for Thanksgiving. A lot of different people have enjoyed this game. It is a drafting game where we collect different stamps and other kind of things like that, and then we place them to form our personal tableau. What is interesting is also that each is divided into days. We are the stamp swapping collection convention. So first we draft them, and I make my personal pool. Then we double draft. This time with I cut you choose, and everybody gets one of their piles and somebody else's pile. Then you form your tableau, so you are creating, so you're tile laying there. And finally, you decide what to score. Each day of the convention, you get to score different things. The scoring conditions are based on cards that change every time, sort of variety there. And so there are just a lot of interesting challenges and choices, because I can choose to score a certain category now or score it later, hoping it gets better. But of course, that applies to every category, because in the last day, you will simply have more of potentially everything. So I'm trying to figure out which one is going to grow more and pay off more. It could be very bad to have a game with so many mechanics, including the double drafting, but it's executed very well. And so that turns out to be a remarkable success instead of a potentially terrible failure, because I like how these different levels are integrated with one another and they flow very well. The theme is really fun. The art is very nice. Maybe my only tiny negative is the art sometimes is a little too nice, meaning that it becomes not fully practical. There are times where you have to look at the stamp twice to check what kind of theme or what kind of color it has. But that did not prevent it from being one of the fun games, one of the most fun games that I played in 24, Stamp Swap. Number 4, Battalion, War of the Ancients. So we have a game again with a war theme, multiple scenarios, different formations based on ancient warring factions, and the terrain is not super important. You're gonna play on the table. There isn't a board. You're gonna use these tiles to represent different factions. You do have templates that divide the different wings of the confrontation. So you're gonna have larger or smaller battles. But really, what is the twist here? What is the one that prevents it from being a simple dice fest? And you're gonna roll dice a lot. It is a dice fest, but not a simple dice fest. It is a magnified, it is an improved dice fest. And what that does is the commands. It's a command systems. You have a limited number of tokens that you can assign to use to issue orders to your troops. If you're gonna have a certain element of your army activate very often, it will become ridiculous how many orders you're investing. So you better make sure that you're delivering a killing blow or it's not worth it. Or you can spread your agency, your orders around the battlefield a little bit more. But ultimately, of course, piercing a big hole in the enemy line is fundamental. So you had the trade-off that you're constantly considering between spreading out and concentrating your agency. Yet those order tokens are also the ones that are used to absorb hits. So there's a lot to think about around what is ultimately rolling dice a lot. But the timing, the mind game, the interactions, the back and forth, basically what really makes the order system, what really makes all the dice rolling so fascinating and so interesting is the order system that makes your decisions pay off and you feel that they are relevant. And ultimately, you reach that paradoxical point where everybody rolls dice so often that sometimes you start having a probability bell, I think is what they call it these days. Anyways, everybody will get some really crazy good and some really crazy bad results, but most results will be in the median range. And so overall, again, you feel that your decisions matter and they impact the battlefield. It looks nice also, nice production, so very good. Number 4 of my top 10. Number 3, Wyrmspan. Wyrmspan, because Wingspan is awesome, and I think the only thing you can make it, you could make it better would be with dragons. There it is. I don't know, maybe with charcuterie plates. But no, let's say that the Wyrmspan, dragons makes it more iconic. So the art is just as stunning, beautiful, and varied as the art of Wingspan, and of course, it's a reimplementation, a reimagining of that modern classic. And yet you have, however, a couple of touches, and every touch and twist that they added, it wanted to me improves upon the original design. It feels more logical and smoother to play. You have more of a spatial element, as you're not just being a dragon caretaker. You're not just raising dragons, but also digging the caves in which they will live. And as you do that, you unlock certain combinations. And so just using your combos, using your engine of resources, a little more sophisticated and more satisfying to me. You have a separate mini board in which, again, you also will be collecting certain resources that then you can use. So around the basic idea of Wingspan, I think you have more agency, less randomness, more interesting patterns towards winning combos that you can unlock. Plus, did I mention it has dragons, which I just find more interesting than birds, but what can I say? I told you this is my subjective top 10, and so that's what I'm gonna tell you. I like Wyrmspan better than Wingspan, and I like Wyrmspan better than a lot of other games that I played in 2024, because this is my number 3. Bronze medal goes to Wyrmspan. Now, drum roll for number 2. How come, is it a coincidence that as they go toward the top, they also become bigger and heavier? Overall, Dungeon card was pretty heavy. But here we have Dune, War for Arrakis. I may have, honestly, I don't remember which one is the right side. Is there one? Okay, looking at the, I don't know that there is one. Dune, War for Arrakis, look at this. This way I'm sure to get it half right and half wrong. Or all wrong? You're the philosophers, I don't know. So, Dune War for Arrakis, a game that comes from the lineage, the general DNA or family, genetical manipulation from Lord of the Ring, and is, of course, the theme is everybody's crazy about Dune these days. Some of us have been since the time we read the novels back in the day, but who am I to judge the fact that the movies have brought a renewed interest toward the franchise, and now we have this phenomenal game, which of course, again, is it a war game? Is it a heavy Euro game? Is it a little bit of both? What you do have is asymmetrical conflict between two main factions, plus more in the expansions, in which, well, one side is the big guys with big machines and big flyers, and they have a lot of striking power, and they're trying to mine the spice. But the other side, then you have the rebels, you have the Fremen, you have the insurgents, with the hit and run tactics, with the sabotage, with a lot of different ways of inflicting pain on the other side. Try to get them stranded in the desert, use the big worms to their advantage. And so you go from, as the Fremen, you go from being very sneaky to them coming with the massive attack. Of course, just by saying that, you know how thematic that is. Like for War of the Ring and other games of this kind, you're gonna have an investment at the beginning in time of digesting the beast, but then you have a very satisfying narrative engine. Again, it's not a game that you're gonna play maybe every week because of how deep and involved it can be, and you're not going to play with everybody. It takes dedicated players, but again, just like other games in the lineage. War of the Ring, I should also mention Age of Conan, somehow it has also that. To me, I feel some similarities there. But you're card-driven, dice-driven, a lot of decisions, and ultimately, again, a lot of action then on the board. Definitely not just War of the Ring on a dry planet, but enough similarities that if you like one, you may like the other. And yet a lot of theme, a lot of interesting decisions here. Very nice, epic confrontation that feels thematic and very engaging from the point of view of gameplay. Dune, War of Arrakis, for Arrakis. Number one, if you watch my recent videos, you probably already know it. I gave you this big spoiler in the video for the game itself. I said, hey, that's probably my favorite. No, that's my favorite game of 2024. And what can I say? I'm confirming it. I haven't changed my mind. Fromage! That means cheese, but it's a lot fancier. It's French cheese, so oh la la, super good. Fromage! It's a simpler, because I'm still thinking about this guy. Overall, it's a simple game. I would say maybe that's the beauty, or one of the beauties, is like midweight game. You could play with younger, casual players who are willing to just go past a little bit of a bump. You could definitely play with hardcore gamers, and they won't feel like the game is too simple or simplistic. But definitely an incredibly well-designed game, and the logistics of it, how the material components of the game are able to capture and implement the mechanics, just incredible. With a rotating board, and it's a worker placement, so you're going to place pieces on the board to select actions. But as they look like wedges of cheese, they point toward a specific direction. And as the board rotates each round, then the wedge will finally start, the tip of the wedge will face you, and when it indicates you, like, yay, it's facing me, I get it back. What does it mean? This is not the first game that has a rotating board, or a board where the workers do not all come back at the same time. The better the action, the longer it takes. But a way that implements that so elegantly, so simply, and so beautifully integrated with the theme, I don't think I've seen it done before. The theme is very attractive to me. It's the perfect companion game with charcuterie. It just so happens I did play the two of them together once. So, Fromage, you place your workers, and the bigger the action, the longer it takes before they come back. Another beautiful thing is that, again, as the board rotates, you'll be interacting with 4 different quadrants, each its own mini game with different decisions, with different challenges, with different ways of scoring points. Each very interactive, because it'll be about majority, it'll be about occupying certain positions and taking away certain positions from others. Yet at the same time, it's all asynchronous. This asynchronous competition creates, again, another remarkable balance that I don't know I've seen anywhere else, between how peaceful and solitary it feels, and yet how intense and confrontational it feels. You have all the joy of ruining somebody else's plan without none of the ness that sometimes comes with it, because by the time the player will see what you did to them, it has been a while, we're already thinking of something else. Your mind switches between the competitive and the solo, switches between 4 mini games, takes into account the investment of time for resources, looks at the beautiful components. Everything comes together in an absolutely phenomenal way. Fromage is certainly my favorite game for 2024. And that's it. That concludes my video. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you had a great year of gaming, and 2025 is just starting, and so I'm sure that we'll have a lot of great games this year too. In the meanwhile, I hope you have a great year, and I hope that you'll play a lot of great games.